You're alive.
Says I'm there.
Okay.
Let me
I don't know
see.
if I'm on there or not.
You're
I
on
don't know what's
there.
going on.
You're on there, Dan. I can see you. Wow. I don't know where that chirping's coming from. It says it's coming through mine, but
All right. Can you guys hear me now? All right. I'm unmuted. All right. We're going to start with Isaiah chapter 41 tonight. I did a little bit of an overview on 41. This whole chapter is on additional reasons why the Jews should place confidence in God's promises of delivering them. He will raise up a prince as their deliverer, whereas their idols could not deliver the heathen nation from that prince. And we'll get into it. It's actually a pretty interesting study, I would say. Okay, next slide. Yeah. So we'll start with verse 1, and it starts out and it says, "Keep silence before me, O islands, and let the people renew their strength. Now, let them come near, then let them speak, and let us come near together to judgment." Now, this sounds really weird. It's like he's talking to a bunch of foreigners, and people are keeping them from him. But it's not what he means here. It says, when he says, "Keep silence before me," it means attend diligently to my plea and then answer it if you can. He's asked them a question. He's going to be asking them questions and be waiting for their answers. And these islands are they represent inhabitants of islands. And the next clause explains this better. But by islands here, he means as he did in Isaiah 40:15, the previous chapter, as countries remote from Judah, inhabited by idolatrous Gentiles, with whom he's debating his cause. He's challenging them basically, and he says, "And let the people renew their strength." The same phrase is used in Isaiah 40:31, but here perhaps with a touch of irony because he repeats it almost immediately into this next challenge. The heathen here are here challenged to the great controversy and will need all their strength and strong reasons if they accept Isaiah's challenge. I put a note in here for us. Isaiah is saying, have them strengthen themselves to maintain their cause against me. Let them all unite their strength together against or enter into the challenge about the power and glory of Yahweh. So what he's doing in this first verse, this first chapter, or this chapter 41, he's challenging all these people that worship the pagan idols and their gold statues and their silver statues or wherever they've got, to challenge God's strength against theirs. And he's actually putting them to the test, I think, is what's going to happen there. Right?
Ready?
Yeah. Now, when he's talking about, he says, let us come near together to judgment. The word judgment here means evidently a controversy, argumentative debate. That's what he's used in Job 9:32. And you going to read that one, Sherry? I'm going to grab my Bible
Yeah,
right
if I
quick.
can find it. Here we go. 784. Okay, hopefully it doesn't go squeaking, okay?
Okay.
He's not mortal like me, that I might answer him, that we might confront each other in court. Did it come through?
I don't know where your speaker is, but you need a little more volume. All right, so
It's yours. There we go.
all right, so what we have here in Job, the language is that which is used to two parties who come together to try a cause or to engage in debate. The sense is, though, Isaiah, that God proposes to enter into an argumentation or argument with the entire pagan world in the regard to his ability to save his people. If you remember, he referred to them as islands. Well, that's islands a lot of times as nations in the Bible.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay, so he's not challenging just the people that Isaiah is talking to right now, but all of them. Okay, and if they have to gather together and choose the best one to present the arguments, then that's what he says. Let them do it. Let them come before me. Right?
He's being more about encompassing everybody.
Everybody, right? Not just one group, right? Now, here's his question. This is the important part. Verse 2, it says, who raised up the righteous man from the east, called him to his foot, gave the nations before him, and made him rule over kings. He gave them as the dust to his sword and as driven stubble to his bow. Okay. Now, the first part of that verse is important. It says, who raised up? The word is hayah. It is usually applied to acts of arousing one from sleep. Solomon 2:7. I'll go there right quick.
That's the one that Lisa's been studying.
Has Lisa's been studying it?
Yeah.
All right. It's a good one.
Yeah, it is.
You just got to get to it.
You know, we got after that separator.
Yeah. I'm getting there. Song of Solomon, is that the ones? Solomon 2:7. Okay. Okay, Solomon 2:7 says, I charge you, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, by the roes and by the hinds of the field, ye that ye stir not up, nor wake my love till he please. Right? So it's talking about waking up or to arouse, right? Get when someone called, basically. 3:5 says, I charge you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the roes and by the hinds of the field, that ye stir not up, nor awake my love, till he please, till God's ready, right? And then 8:4, right? And then 8:4 I have here. It says, if I charge you, again, O daughters, that ye stir not up, nor awake, my love, until he pleases. 3 times he repeats that in Solomon. In other words, you don't call him, I call him. Don't stir him up. Don't call him until I am ready, or I've prepared him, or I call him. Right. And then Zechariah
Says,
Um,
then the angel who talked with me returned and woke me up
hang on.
like someone awakened from sleep.
Did they hear you? Read it again.
Then the angel who talked with me returned and woke me up like someone awakened from sleep.
Okay.
Sorry, you can turn it back up again. I can just talk through your speaker.
All right. Should be able to hear me now. I think they should, anyway. So what we have is, it means that God had caused the man here referred to arouse the overthrow of their enemies. He's called him, right? It was by his power and plan that this person would be led. God's desire to form the plans which should result in their deliverance. It was by his power and plan that this person would be led, not by man. God's desire to form the plans which should result in their deliverance, right? So, when you see who raised up, when Isaiah's asking that question, and remember now he's talking to a group of pagan worshipers, and it wasn't your idol that called this man. Right? Go ahead.
So what he's saying is, why did you get involved in this? Kind of, right? You know,
Because I'm sure then we'll find out.
you just turned my attention to you.
Right.
That's what he's saying.
Right.
Right?
He was delivering what God had told him to prophesize about.
Right.
And now they've challenged him or contested against him, and as we'll see later on in this chapter,
Like you don't have a dog in this fight.
they're threatened. They feel threatened.
Too bad.
Right. If God calls it, what are you to God? Right. Go to the next slide. I think I can't see below it.
I'm so used to Dave doing this.
Okay, sorry. So the key phrase there, the next part of that was the righteous man from the east. Now, in Hebrew, tesdek means righteousness, or the man of righteousness. The word here means in our translation, the just or righteous man. Okay. Now, many of the people that I reviewed this, I was looking at I probably looked at 10 different translations or interpretations of this. When I was reviewing it, and I gave 2 of the main ones. That's better. 2 of them, and the first one I gave was that many of the expositors understand this of Abraham, who was a person eminently righteous, right? Because it says the righteous man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who was called from the other side of the Euphrates, which would be from the east of where Israel and Judah is today, right? Which lay northward also and partly east from Judah, who performed the things here mentioned, partly in his own person, conquering the 5 kings and their people with them when he rescued Job and his nephew and his family, right? In the following text, Abraham is referred as to coming from the north, though, not from the east. So there's a distinction there, and we'll see that in Jeremiah. As you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 references in Jeremiah that they were from the north. Abraham was from the north. Okay, and Jeremiah's the next.
So what you're saying here is you think that, so we thought they were talking about Abraham.
And
They
originally,
are talking about Abraham. Is this anything that has to do with when they came from the east to see Jesus? Is this kind of a little bit of a prediction there, or?
yes, it has.
Okay.
Well, it's a reference too, and we'll start that here in this next thought, right? Because the wise man came from the east, right? So immediately, since we already have the scriptures,
Dave wants to talk. Okay. So just mute. No, you let Dave talk, but you just mute yours.
I'm all right. I'm unmuted. All right.
And just in FYI, I opened up the chat, so if you wanted to ask your question or say something in chat, hopefully we should all be able to see it.
Chat doesn't show up.
It will. Because I could show chat.
Where?
You want me to chat something to show you?
Okay, go ahead. We're still learning this system. It's amazing.
Did it come up for you?
Not a thing.
It did over here. And up here. Okay. Well, I can see the chat. I can handle it for you.
Okay, I don't see. It says it would show up. Will appear in the corner of your screen.
Yeah. Should say private chat on the right hand side.
There's nothing there.
Okay.
I don't see it. So you can come look. That's what I get.
Yeah, but you have to shrink your screen first.
Oh, well, you didn't say that.
See, it says hi chat.
Well, hi chat, yeah, but
Yeah, but
I wasn't hiding it.
go back to where you were at when you were getting ready to do that. Right there.
All right.
Click on that. There you go. Now it should show you chats.
Okay.
It should.
I believe you, but I don't see it anyway. Just something I'll just have to point it out if I miss it. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
When you're in full screen, you won't see it.
Okay. Anyway, the second most common belief, they believe it was Koresh or Cyrus, the future restorer of Israel. The thought of Cyrus as working out the righteousness of God is dominant in these chapters, especially with Isaiah 42:6, which we'll cover here, and then also in 45:13 he talks about him. In the rapidity of his conquest, the prophet bids men see the proof that he is doing God's work. He came from the east, right? From Persia. Now the three wise men came from where? Persia, right? Which was directly eastward from Judah and from Babylon, right? He was raised up by God in an eminent and extraordinary manner, as is observed both by sacred and profane historians. That Cyrus, the Persian monarch, by whom Babylon was taken and by whom the Jews were restored to their own land. Do you remember that he was a general or a head of an army?
Cyrus was?
Yes, and he was selected by the other leaders to lead the whole thing against Babylon.
Oh, so he was instrumental in freeing the Jews
from Babylon. He actually was the one that figured out how to divert the river and goes underneath and take the city and the
And
capital.
he would be a righteous man from the east. Then.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So that's.
Do we have a righteous man in the east today?
I don't know. I haven't looked for that one.
Okay.
Depends on which east you're looking at. Right? That'd be a good research paper.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All right. So the next part of this is it called him to his foot. Now, when anything is called, if you remember, anytime you're called to the foot of God, it's in what? Submission. Right?
Humble.
humbleness, right? And
Right.
even Cyrus, he called him to attend his God's steps. God called him to do what he wanted him to do, and that is follow his guidance. In Ezra 1:12, I don't know if you got Ezra. I got Ezekiel.
Ezra was the one that we were going to go to after Isaiah, by the way.
Right.
Uh,
I think I just got to get over there.
You got it?
Not yet.
Okay.
You guys can look this up too. You know, I just got to figure out where it is.
Well, Lisa M. is getting out of reading tonight. Shame on her.
Oh,
I'll get her next week.
okay.
That's right.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ezra 1:2, right?
Yeah. Just speak louder, if you don't mind.
In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah, the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation throughout his realm and also to put it in writing. You want to know what he said?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is what Cyrus, king of Persia, says. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah.
Okay. You think he's following God's plan? Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to know he's talking to us even then.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He was talking to us even then.
Even then, right? All right. Anyway, Cyrus acknowledges Jehovah is the giver of his victories. God gave him all the nations on the earth, right? He subdued the nations from the Uzine, which is an area to the very, very northern part, to the Red Sea, and even Egypt was under his control. Now imagine that. There used to be
He
the
was
great
very
pharaohs.
powerful.
He was powerful, and God made him that way, right? So he gave the nations before him and made him ruler over kings. Now he made an apostle. He made him an apostle to the Gentiles. If you have a king that's over you, and he's a believer in God, he's an apostle. He's spreading the truth of God, right? Of the nations, and made those Gentiles or nations obedient by word and deed. I'm sure that one of his proclamations was to remove all pagan idols. There was a time period. Didn't Jacob do the same thing when he left the land of Shinar, and he took all the pagan idols and jewelry and stuff and buried them under the oak tree, and then went back
Yes.
north, didn't he?
Yes.
You remember? Same thing is occurring
What
here.
would have been the idols in Persia?
At the time in Persia himself,
At the time of Cyrus.
they would probably had the pagan images of prosperity, fertility, natural of nature, right?
Okay.
But he wasn't. He became a believer through the prophecies and things of Isaiah. Okay, so he subdued nations and their kings before him. Can you just the concept? If you just try to think about this, Egypt was one of the most powerful nations in the world at the time, right? And he subdued them. Pharaohs were known as gods.
That's because they woke him up.
They woke him up. Yes,
They woke
God.
him up. They made him aware, and then God used him.
God used him to take him to
Shame
subdue
on
them. Right. Right.
Be careful what you ask for, what you do.
Right. He gave them as dust. Right. This is pretty interesting. These nations is what he's talking about. To be beaten by him as small as dust, and is said in Psalms 18:42. I didn't highlight that one, but I got it.
Sounds easy to find.
Yeah, 1842. Hang on a second. 1842 says, "Then did I beat them, small as the dust before the wind. I did cast them out as the dirt in the streets." So,
You were light work.
yeah,
Not hard to do it all.
Or to be put to flight as easily as the dust is scattered by the wind, as the following clause expounds upon this. Now, in verse 3, he talks about, Isaiah's talking about how they're subdued by a man from the east, a
Mhm.
righteous man. How it's very kind of symbolic of in many ways, it repeats a lot of the actions that Abraham did, but even greater. Does that make sense? So in verse 3, it says, he pursued them and passed safely, even by the way that he had not gone with his feet. That kind of
So
sounds
even though he didn't know the way, he easily got right to where he was supposed to go.
go
And
successfully
it
and
says
easily.
he passed safely,
Safely.
meaning that nobody, meaning not that he passed them, but that nobody's tried to stop him as he was going. That's what that means.
No, that means that they were nothing to, they couldn't confront him. They were not strong enough to confront
Okay.
him. He just walked through them.
Okay.
And if you're have a powerful, I mean, they combined 4 armies together under him for this battle, right? And if you got God on your side, do you remember the time when they were fleeing Shinar, Jacob and his family?
Yeah.
And they were worried about the tribes attacking them from the sides, and God put the chariots, the host of heaven to each side of him to protect him.
Mhm.
You think Cyrus didn't have the same thing? It would be intimidating and frightening to anyone that would try to attack him, right? So he went on with his pursuit with great ease and safety and success.
And there's the answer to the question.
Right. Okay. So even by the way that he had not gone with his feet. Now, this is added as further evidence of God's wonderful providence and encouraging and enabling him to march by unknown paths. Now, in history, this course has proved dangerous and destructive to great armies in the past. If you don't have a scout out ahead, seeing about traps or
Like going in the desert in Honeycomb.
yeah, like going in the desert in Sonoma, right? And you don't go prepared.
The horse trails,
right? You don't go prepared, you're not going to be very successful, right? All right, and then we go to verse 4. Anybody have any other questions or want to make comments? That please do. Verse 4 says, "Who hath wrought and done it, calling the generations from the beginning. I, the Lord, the first and with the last, I am He." Now, who hath wrought and done it? What Isaiah is saying here, and he's saying it in God's words, right? By whom has all this been accomplished? Has it been by the arm of Cyrus? He's a man,
Right.
right? Has it been by human skill and powers?
No.
Even Cyrus acknowledged that he wasn't
He was
worthy.
humble at his feet, right?
Yes, but he acknowledged that he wasn't worthy when he was chosen to lead the armies. That God put him in that position to do it. The design of this question is obvious. It is to direct attention to the fact that all this had been done by God, and that he who had raised up such a man and had accomplished all this by means of him had power to deliver his people. Right?
We all know we can't do it. We are nowhere near as powerful as we are with our God.
Right. Right. We can't do anything. Right. So it says calling the generations from the beginning. Now the idea here seems to be that all the nations that dwell on the earth in every place owe their origin to God.
Right.
If you go to Acts 17:26, you got it. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a few of them marked.
Are you already marking in your Bible?
Yeah, some of them.
Oh,
I got
that's
16.
cool. I got Acts 17.
Okay. 26. Yeah.
From one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands.
Wow. Kind of answers that one, doesn't it? From the generations from the beginning. Yeah, does that make sense?
Hmm.
The word calling here seems to be used in the sense of commanding, directing, and ordering. Has God been in charge of that from the beginning? Yes. He called
So-
Abraham out.
Help me out with this.
Okay.
So he made one man.
Okay, what he's referring to here is the lineage of Christ, the one man that would save the world.
So is it pre or post
He did it pre,
Jesus' death, where we're then becoming the adopted ones?
post,
So this is
pre. This is pre.
Acts verse, though,
Acts is
is
after.
post,
Is post. Yes.
saying that all of us originated from God, which we did.
Right.
But we became adopted into the family of God after Jesus
This
died.
died. Yeah, and salvation was for everyone.
I wish David could, because I know he's just burdened to say something.
You should be able to say so. Okay.
In my own head.
Anyway, the word calling here seems to be a sense of commanding, directing, and ordering them. Ordering whoever God calls. Does he give them direction and commands? Yes, he commanded Moses. He commanded Abraham, didn't he?
He commands anybody he wants to.
He chooses, right, but for his purposes, so he fulfills the plan, right? The truth taught or emphasized here is that all the nations were under his control and had been from the beginning.
Which is
what people don't
why
realize.
When you look at the multiple religions across the
world,
they all have common things.
Yes.
All of
Man's distorted it because man always decides that he wants to change it a little bit or add to it or take
Right.
away from it.
Or make it fit their agenda.
Right. So all the nations, all the world is under God's control. Right. And it says, and the last of that says, oh, not the last of it, the next one, it says, I, the Lord, the first and with the last. And it was before any creature was made, existing before any other being. The description that God here gives of himself as the first and the last is one that is often applied to him in scriptures. And one that properly expresses eternity, which is the essence of the creed of Israel. And if you do Exodus 3:14, or I'll get Psalms while you do that.
Okay.
All right.
The easy one.
Yeah. Psalms 90. Okay.
3:14.
Yeah.
Exodus. Pages are stuck together. Exodus 3:14 says, God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you.
Okay. Well, that'd be from the beginning, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The first and the last. I am. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't change, does it? Okay.
I am who I am.
Now, and Psalms 90, verse 2 says, before the mountains were brought forth, or even thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God.
From
Okay.
everlasting to everlasting.
Lasting, right? And then Psalms 102, which I have here, 102:26 says, they shall perish, but thou shalt endure. Yea, all of them shall wax old like a garment. As a vesture shalt thou change them, and they shall be changed. So if we follow under him, we can become changed.
Adopted into the family.
Well, let's do 25 before 26 on that one. I'm sorry. 102:25 says, of old hast thou laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of thy hands. Right? So that ties in, and they shall perish, your enemies, right? And thou shalt exalt, endure, right? All of them. Everyone shall wax away and as an old garment, deteriorate and go away, right? Who can stand before God? That's what he's trying to get at. God is often referred to the Alpha and Omega in our Bibles, and Revelation
1:17.
1:11.
1:11.
That's the first part. 100. Don't go to 17 yet.
1:11.
Yeah.
Says, which said, write on a scroll what you see and send it to the 7 churches. Is that right? To Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea.
Okay, that's 1:11.
Yeah, but it doesn't talk about
Okay, hang on.
the Alpha and the Omega.
No, then go to 117. You're probably right. I probably just did a typo there. 117.
Yeah,
says,
117. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. Then he placed his right hand on me and said, "Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last."
there you go. Okay. And then I'm going to read Revelations 4.
8.
You got it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. 4:8. I want to make sure I got it right. No. No, the 8 is about the wings of the beast. And they were full of eyes within. And they called him Holy, Holy.
Is the Lord God Almighty,
You're right.
who
And
was
then-
and is to come.
And
That's
is to
it.
come. Right. Okay. Right. And
And that's a song too. by the way.
right. And this is also applied to our Lord Jesus Christ too. And again, like 117, he's going to be here. He was in the beginning and he's at the end, right? He returns. So let me go to 22. Is there 22?
Yeah, 22:13, and that's perfect verse.
Okay, let me get that one. And it says, "I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last."
Mhm.
Right. So that's where Isaiah was. He was actually prophesying the past and the future that would come true, right?
Well, he's trying to express just how important,
Yeah.
from the very beginning, of
Beginning,
this, right?
Right.
Be
Yes.
silent before me, you islands. Is
You-
what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because this is who I am.
This is who I am prophesying for.
Hmm.
Yeah. Isaiah was pretty humble, but he was he was bold. He had God had removed fear from him. You know that? Because when you know the truth, there is no fear.
There is no fear.
Right. And Isaiah knew the
who
truth.
can come against God?
Right. No one, right?
Yes. You can do it too, by the way.
I tried, it wouldn't do it. All right. So the last part of that phrase says, "I am he." Oh, there's the great I am again, right? It's probably used as an assertion of the eternal being in the I am. When Moses asks God, he tells Moses Moses was like you read a while ago. What do I call you when I get to Israel, right?
Right.
Tell them I am the great I am.
I am sent you.
Sent me, right? And then also you see a reference there to John, the book of John, in the New Testament. I gotta get to it right quick. Sorry, I got it here. Luke is just getting in my way.
Luke has never been in the way. Stop.
All right, John 8. It says 8:58, correct?
John 8:58. Yes.
I looked these all up once. Oh, Jesus said unto them, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am."
Because so many people were always saying, we're always revering Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to tell them, who do you think Abraham
Revered.
revered?
Me.
Hello?
Hello. I mean, if you see me, you see the Father, right? Yeah. So you see how the Old Testament, New Testament is tied together so closely. Isaiah was a great prophet. And I think one of the greatest, I think he was the greatest to ever live. But anyway, that's my opinion. So let's go to verse 5. And it says, "The isles saw it," and the isles would be also what? The islands
The
or the
nations,
nations,
uh-huh.
right? "And feared, and the ends of the earth were afraid, drew near, and came." Now the isles saw the distant nations. They saw what was done in the conquest of the man who God in this remarkable manner had raised up. They saw him beat the armies that were after Jerusalem and Judah. He defeated them, right? They had demonstrate, or Babylon, excuse me. They had demonstration or witness, therefore, of the mighty power of Yahweh above the power of idols. Because everybody fled and prayed to their idols and nothing happened, right? "And feared," they were alarmed and trembled. "All were apprehensive that they would be subdued and driven away as with the tempest or the force from the storm," right? And the rest of it says there, "the ends of the earth were afraid." Again, we see the reference that suggests all known lands of the earth. This is about the distant nations occupying the extremities of the globe. Acts 1:8. Luke. Are you going to get there for me?
I don't know. I'm at John.
I'm in Acts
I'm at Acts 4.
1.
Okay, you got it.
All right, I got it. I got, 8. I'm at 15. I got it. Hang on a second. 1:8 says, that ye shall receive power after that the Holy Ghost is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all of Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the earth. Right? That means all, right? The ends of the earth, right? And you want to do Psalms 22:27?
Yes.
Okay.
All the ends of the earth will remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations will bow down before him.
Wow. Definitely talking about the most righteous man to ever live, right? As a man. All right, Daniel 4:11 I have. And it says, the tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached into heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. Everybody shall kneel, right? Right? The mighty oak, right? All right, so drew near and came, right? Now, this is important part. You notice there was a comma there. They were afraid, but they drew near, right? And came. They came together for the purpose of mutual alliance. Now, he's talking about the pagan worshipers here.
Right.
Because he's already challenged them to a debate, right? Or a confrontation or an argument,
right,
to see who is right, right? And also they're going to defend each other, self-defense. The prophet evidently refers to what he's saying in the following verses. Now, I want you to note here that in the history that I was reading, is they formed treaties. Did the other nations that were going against Jerusalem form treaties? Yes. Right? They even gave gold and stuff to the Egyptians, and they didn't show up. That was a treaty, right?
right,
Okay. But they endeavored to prepare for self-defense, is what they were trying to do. They looked to their idol gods and encouraged each other in attempts to offer a successful resistance to the victorious arms of Cyrus.
they were afraid.
They were afraid, right? Somebody's texting you. I heard it click.
Was it mine?
Yeah, that was yours. It wasn't mine. Hang on, people. We'll be right with you.
No.
No? Okay. I thought there was something there. All right. So the next verse is verse 6. And this is still talking about, the not Cyrus, but the pagan Gentile population, the worshipers of idols.
The ones that were trying to put themselves together to form a defense.
Right.
Okay.
They helped everyone his neighbor, and everyone said to his brother, be of good courage. Right? They gave it their neighbor, but helped everyone his neighbor by advice and counsel, by the best arguments that the pagan worshipers, and make use of it. They were consolidating all their information, right? To resist the teachings of religion.
Which they still do today.
And defend the old one.
Which they still do today.
To prevent the embracing the one and relinquishing the other.
Because of control.
Because, and didn't Christ see that all the time?
Yes.
Right? Even within his own.
Yeah, if you weren't constantly in their face.
Yes.
They would just
go right back to it.
Revert.
But also, when didn't the Sanhedrin and the Jewish council went against him because they were going to lose power and influence?
Yes.
They condemned him for it, didn't they?
Yep.
Okay. If they embraced his new kingdom, they'd have to relinquish their other powers and controls, their wealth, their prestige, their power. Right?
They're not in the picture.
Yeah, I know. That's okay. Is that better?
There we go. That's great.
All right. And then it's the next part. It says, and everyone said to his brother, be of good courage, or be strong. They strengthened one another's hand in their idolatrous worship, encouraged each other to oppose the prevailing doctrine, by urging that the craft of some was in danger and the religion or beliefs of them at stake, and their gods like to fall in contempt.
Yeah, they were. Oh gosh.
Let me give you an example. I think this is pretty amazing. Everybody's heard about the ark that Noah built,
Right.
correct?
Right.
Guys, do you remember how long it took him to build the ark? 120 years to build the ark, right? Think about this. All the people that were around him that saw him laying this out for 120 years never repented.
Never repented. Never once helped.
And he
never once asked.
and he preached to them.
Every time they came and made fun of his head.
Yep. Or what he was doing, right? 120 years. That's what, 2 generations? Almost 3? Because people didn't live very long. Generations usually 40 years, right? At that time period. Or no longer. Anyway, it was a long time. It was more than one set of people. Does that make sense? It was
Their children carried it on.
the beliefs were passed down but even though they could see him building this, they never believed.
Well, when you go 120 years without rain.
They didn't go that long without rain. Not that kind of rain. He would tell them it was going to flood the earth. They didn't believe anything like that.
Right.
They'd seen rains and minor, what do you call them, flash floods in the area, right? But nothing that would lift something that he was building. It was too huge, right? All right. So that's just an example of people that will continue to believe what they want to believe, no matter what they witness in front of them, right? Okay.
Completely understand that.
Mm-hmm. So an instance of this may be seen in Demetrius, the craftsman at Ephesus, when the gospel mightily prevailed there. Demetrius stirred up the workmen of the same craft with himself and the like, suggesting that the loss of their business and the dishonor reflected on their goddess Diana should the apostle go on as he did. And that's in Acts 19:20. And that's another example. I got Acts here.
Yeah, but you want to read 19:19 as well.
Okay, I'm going to. You got it?
Uh-huh.
Read it.
A number who had practiced sorcery brought their scrolls together and burned them publicly. When they calculated the value of the scrolls, the total came to 50,000 drachmas.
Drachmas.
In this way, the word of the Lord spread widely and grew in power.
Amazing, huh?
So they were worried that
Yeah.
if this kept going on, right?
Yeah, the loss of money.
Well, yeah, their power, their money, their lifestyles.
Yep, would all go away, wouldn't it?
Nothing new under the sun.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to do verse 7 now. Okay. So the carpenter encouraged the goldsmith, and he that smootheth with the hammer him that smote with the anvil, saying, it is ready for the soldering, and he fastened it with nails that it should not be moved. Now, this is Isaiah telling what's happening. Okay. So the carpenter encouraged the goldsmith, right? Now the carpenter, which we had read in verse 40, is the one that carved the figurines or the statues out of wood, right? When he made a wooden image, right? He encouraged and hastened the goldsmith, or the finer, the one that would refine the gold, right? As somewhere in it, to do his part in covering it with plates of gold and silver, right? And so, and he that smooth with the hammer, him that smote the anvil. Now, the him is that smoothest is with the hammer is the one that beats these thin plates of gold and silver into shapes, right? In order to cover the wooden god, right? Then he encouraged the smith at the forge on the anvil and making nails for fastening it to a pillar or a wall to hasten his work. They need to get this ready in a hurry. They were challenging Isaiah and God, right? Now, and the rest of that, he says, saying it is ready for the soldering. Now, Isaiah reveals here that he's very familiar with the fabrication of the pagan idols, for the several joints to be put together by soldering them together. He knows what they're doing. God's already revealed everything they're going to go through. To me, that was a clue that Isaiah said, oh, go ahead, let them do what they got to do. It won't hold up, right? He even tells them how they're going to do it, right? And he fastened it with nails that it should not be moved. This would have been the goldsmith or the refiner that fastened the plates of gold and silver with nails, with pins,
So
right, to the wood.
The idolaters
Hmm.
would lose their source of income.
They
if there
sold
wasn't
these
idols.
idols, right? How would they sell their product?
Yeah. What would they build?
Right.
You know,
They might work in the temple. You know, there's a lot of gold in there.
gold fillings for your teeth.
Teeth, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if they did at that time period, right? All right. Or they're talking about the smith that smoked the animal and made the nails, that he fastened the image with them at some proper place so that it might not fall or be taken
Right.
away, right?
Mhm.
All which is that represents the hurry and solicitude idolaters were in to keep up their craft and religion, so it exposes them to ridicule and contempt.
Right.
Isaiah is just pushing the envelope, is what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right. Now he's talking to the chosen people. He
Mhm.
says, verse 8, "But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend."
Oh, that's nice.
All right, now, "But thou, Israel, art my servant." Thus the Gentiles show themselves to be the servants of their idols and of them for their God. But thou art my people, and I am and will be thy God.
Yep, one Abraham's God.
Abraham to Jacob to Israel, right?
The God of Abraham, the God of Jacob.
Yes, right. So
Our God. Wow.
it says here, Jacob, whom I have chosen, right? So the descendants of Jacob, whom I have selected to be my people, right? He was the 12 tribes, out of the multitude of idolatrous nations. God chose them to be his peculiar people. Now, the idea in this verse is that they were descendants of his friend. And we'll get into that. God deemed himself bound to protect and deliver them according to his gracious promises. This is one of the many instances where the divine favor is manifested to the descendants and consequences of the piety and prayers of their ancestors. This because what did he promise Abraham? That his
He
would be
he-
the father of nations
Yeah.
and of generations, and as much as the sands of the sea,
and
right?
the stars in the sky.
Stars in the sky, right? So the seed of my Abraham, my friend. Abraham was regarded as the friend of God, with whom I had made a strict league or perpetual friendship.
Mm.
In Genesis 12:2-3. Let me go there. I got this one. It's pretty easy to get to. There we go. So 12:3 says, "And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed." Right? And then, but 2 says, "And I will make thee a great nation." This is because he promised this to Abraham. "And I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing for generations."
Mhm.
Right? What's the next one? Genesis 15.
15:1.
Yeah.
After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward.
Mm-hmm.
15:8. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it?
Right. Right. Why would that be important? Even Abraham doubted, because God still called him his friend, because he chose him. Right. Even though, it shows how human he was. So Abraham was still human because God was in charge. It was prosperous, not because of Abraham, but because of God. Does that make sense? All right. I think I put a note in here. The expressions are very endearing here in this verse. It is honorable to be God's servant, still more to be his chosen servant, and then to be descended from one to whom he vouched for and gave the title of friend, as God did to Abraham. And there's references to that. 2 Chronicles and James. I'm on the Chronicles. Huh?
Okay, I'll find
Second
James.
Chronicles 20. I'm at 10. All right, here we go. 27. Now it says, Second Chronicles 27 says, Art not thou our God, who didst drive out the inhabitants of this land before thy people Israel, and gavest this to the seed of Abraham, thy friend forever.
Mm.
Okay. And then James, you got James?
And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness, and he was called God's friend.
Friend.
Wow,
Pretty amazing,
that's
isn't it?
pretty nice.
Yeah. So
I
our
like
goal is not to be just Christians, but a friend of God.
that. Right.
And you do that through righteousness. And God will bless you for that, right? All right. Are we doing okay on time?
We are at 8:03.
Okay.
You're still talking about Abraham in verse 9, right? Israel, my servant Jacob, whom I've chosen, your descendants of Abraham.
Where are you at?
We're on verse.
Oh, yes, yeah. We can do verse 9.
Okay.
Right. It says, verse 9 starts out, and it says, Thou whom I have taken from the ends of the earth. Now, this would be the ones he called, right? And called thee from the chief men thereof, and said unto thee, Thou art my servant. I have chosen thee and not cast thee away. Now, I think it's amazing that he chose them from the chief men, from the ends of the earth, right? So did he? He chooses who he wishes, right? When it says, "Thou have taken thou whom I have taken from the ends of the earth," first off, Ur of the Chaldees was Abram, right? As belonged to the Euphrates region, which is way north, right?
Okay.
It's on the extreme verge of the prophet's horizon from Chaldea, where he's at, which is regarded by the Jews as the remote part of the earth. It's a long ways off from Israel and Judah. Okay. Now, geologically speaking, Abraham was called from Ur of the Chaldees, a city still remaining today on the east of the river of the Euphrates. It's probably the same place as the Persian fortress Ur, between Nisibius and the Tigris rivers. Okay. To me, it was kind of amazing. If you go in
and the
Tigris, Nisibis, right?
Can you put that in perspective for me?
All right. Okay. If you were to go towards Turkey today, which would be Turkey, the area of Turkey, and Mount Ararat, where they believe the Ark of Noah landed. The rivers that flow from those mountains are the Euphrates, the Nesbis, and the Tigris.
Okay.
Right. Also, it was supposed to be the area of the Garden of Eden.
Oh.
Originally.
Okay.
And got hit it. Okay. But also the fact is that it was a Persian fortress. You think Cyrus might have been using that to conquer the known lands of all the nations? God took him right back to where it started. Pretty amazing if you think about it. If you go back and look at the history.
Well, God is pretty far-reaching because it's not like we had social media back in the day.
We didn't have it, but
yet he could reach to the ends of the earth and for whoever he needed, wherever he needed them to be.
Right, and he can still do that today.
Yeah.
Right. Now the next part of that key phrase in there, and called them from the chief men thereof, or rather from the extremities of the earth. The word, the chief men, or called thee from the chief men, right? When it says call thee, it means to properly set aside.
Okay.
Okay. From the midst of many great and noble persons. Now, when he called Moses, Moses was the nephew of the Pharaoh.
Right.
By adoption.
Right.
Okay. Who was Isaiah? The son of a prophet. Right. His father was a great prophet. but not as great as Isaiah become. And then there was, and he prophesies about Jeremiah being greater, younger and greater than he was. You see how he calls people, and it doesn't matter where you're at. Okay. He called these people from the area among where he lived in Chaldea, and then when applied to the earth means the side ends or extremities of it. All right, in Exodus 24:11. You have that one?
But God did not raise his hand against these leaders of the Israelites. They saw God and they ate and drank.
So what does it say in that? It says, "And cast not, and not cast thee away." Right. So this notes God's singular mercy to, it's supposed to be Abraham. And consequently to the Israelites descended from him, that he passed by many of Abraham's betters and called him into fellowship with himself.
Right.
So
and we know that. That's a very common story. Most people know that.
well, a lot of people don't understand that Abraham was from a very faithful group of people that worshiped God prior.
Yes.
Now, where would they have gotten that from?
From the scroll? From Isaiah?
No, this is before that.
That was before Isaiah?
Noah
From Noah
and Shem
and Ham
and Ham.
Japheth. Okay.
Yeah, that would have been passed down. Those are direct descendants from Methuselah and his great grandfather. Right? You see what I'm saying? Passed down through those from Abraham, from Adam descendants. Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it's true, right? It's the way you say it sounds crazy. Anyway, but it works, right? All right. The verse is plain in its meaning and it's full of consolation, actually. It is regarded as addressed primarily to the exiled Jews during the long and painful captivity in Babylon.
Where are we at?
I fear not yet. It says, I have chosen thee and not cast thee away. You want me to cover that one first?
Well,
I jumped down.
Yeah.
I have chosen thee not for a small moment, but forever. He's talking to the descendants of Abraham, isn't he? Right? By making an everlasting covenant with thee and thy seed through all generations.
Or the sense
this is, as I have chosen thee at first, I have not since that time cast thee off, as thou have frequently given me sufficient occasion to do. Is God saying that you keep messing up and going back to idol and pagan worship? Or you're not following my commandments?
Basically, he's saying, I've chosen you.
Right. So
how important are you that I chose you?
I chose your,
because I didn't have to choose you.
Right. And you gave me sufficient occasion just to cast you away and start over. Right.
So at this verse right here, we've talked about how he was chosen. Now he's going to tell them how to act. So should we stop
there? Yeah, let's stop there. Right.
And then I guess, is there any questions or any comments?
Well, and people can also send us on our website.
Right. Having heard or seen none. You want to pray? Oh, we don't have Bible study next week, right?
No, we don't. We have a board meeting
next week. Okay.
Right.
So, and David, Pastor Dave, and the Mrs. Lisa are on their anniversary trip. So we wish them well and traveling mercy.
Right.
And so we will not see you next Tuesday, but we will definitely see you the Tuesday after. So if you're ready, you can go ahead and pray.
Okay. Lord, we come tonight and we give you thanks for providing us insight and discernment into your word. We ask that you apply this information to our spirit and our soul so that we can plant a seed for others, and realize that he chose us through his son's sacrifice so that we could be part of his family forever and ever. And we say these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. All right, guys. See you guys later.
All right. Have a good night.